Hello there, people of the internet. I want to talk about how your humble double-aught buck shotgun shell is probably the most underrated cartridge in the gun community. Now, hear me out on this one before you go angrily typing it in the comments. I got the hiccups, I'm sorry guys, it happens whenever I talk a bunch. But your double-aught buckshot, obviously we all know about it. We all know that it is horrendously effective. What it is it's pretty much a shotgun shell that's loaded with, more often than not, 9 pellets of buckshot, and these pellets are quite large. Hopefully the camera's picking them up inside of this shotgun shell. You can see them in there. But these 9 pellets all go flying out of your shotgun barrel at the same time, or more or less the same time, and they smack into whatever it is that's in front of it. And so essentially you're hitting whatever target it is that you're hitting, potentially with 9 different projectiles. You're smacking it all at once, and it transfers a tremendous amount of energy onto its target, and it is extraordinarily good at being a one-shot stop against even the most drugged out, scrawny Neanderthal that's running at you. Within most distances that us as civilians would ever need to send lead at for any sort of protective situation, double-aught buckshot is more than likely going to handle it. And the reason why I say it's severely underrated is because in the gun community, we're basically all focused on some sort of rifle. I see a rifle-pistol combo as like the most common occurrence for what people are going to be arguing about for what is going to be best for most of your situations. And a lot of times it's, say, the AR platform, people will argue 55 versus 62 grain bullets, or maybe you want to use 77 grain bullets, or what's going to be best, a 20-inch barrel so you get that extra velocity, or just go with the common 16-inch barrel, or maybe a 14.5 that's got a pin and welded thing on it to make sure that you don't have any legality issues, or maybe you're going to go out and get yourself an SBR or some kind of AR pistol. Or you can argue, this is a good example, your 308 rifle, yes, you're carrying less ammunition, but you're probably going to be doing more damage to your target whenever you smack it. If you're going to smack it once and put it down with a 308, why bother carrying more 5.56 ammo if you have to smack your target more than once to be able to put it down? But then there's arguments going both ways about more ammo for things that aren't just about shooting your target. Or the point that I'm trying to make here is, in the gun community, we're always arguing about rifles or handguns, and very, very, very seldomly do I see people talking about using shotguns. And I think that it's because shotguns are so ridiculously good at what they do that they kind of put things in easy mode. Like, from a civilian standpoint, if you have a shotgun as your long arm, you can do like 99% of everything that you would ever need a firearm to be able to do. Like, if I have, say, this 1897 Winchester, this is a 2 3/4 inch shotgun. It's a 2 3/4 inch shotgun, but early versions of this ran a 2 5/8 shell, so you just want to pay attention on what version of this particular shotgun it is that you have. But my point is, if you have something like this right here, then you're pretty much set for everything. If you are going to be, say, in close quarters, like an apartment building or your house or something like that, maybe getting something with a shorter barrel would be a better option. And there's really affordable options out there. I get that this one right here is pink and whatnot, but this is a Maverick 88, and you can find one of these on the market very commonly for like 250 bucks. And it is an overwhelmingly good little shotgun to be able to handle like 99% of the jobs that any of us would ever need to handle. Now, if you're shooting out at really long distances or hunting like really big game or something like that, well, even with big game, you got like shotgun slugs that you can use to put down that big game. But most of us, like, from a civilian standpoint, most of us really aren't shooting anything beyond 100 yards. If you are, then the odds of you shooting at anything beyond 300 yards is extraordinarily small. And if you're going to be using whatever it is that you're going after, like whatever it is that you're using for hunting purposes, then most of what you're going after could be taken with a shotgun. Even if you're going after the biggest animals, if you get yourself, say, a shotgun slug, like what I have right here, this right here is very effective at putting down a good number of things. If you need good penetration, they make particular shotgun slugs that are designed for good penetration, that are designed for your big game hunting. This right here is just a lead slugging. It would be extraordinarily good at doing a one-stop shot on whatever it is that you need to put down. If you look up the accuracy of a rifled slug or a slug through a rifled barrel, you will see that there is some pretty gosh darn good accuracy that can be achieved from a shotgun out to about 300 yards or so. And like I said, most of us really are not shooting past that. So if you need to touch out to long distances, obviously your shotgun can do it. But by a pretty huge margin, most of us are never going to be shooting at anything beyond, say, that 100-yard point. Especially if we're talking about a self-defense situation, we're going to be anywhere from like 5 yards to maybe 50 yards, depending on what the yelling distance is in your particular area. Odds are it's going to be a lot closer than 50 yards, but we're going to go ahead and just call it 50 yards because that 1% chance is not a 0% chance. So at the distances that most of us would ever need anything to be able to do anything with, your buckshot is an extraordinarily good option. Now, if we're looking at things beyond just like a self-defense sort of situation, let's say we are looking at a militia arm the masses style of situation. Like we have, I don't know, paratroopers coming down, it's Red Dawn sort of situation, and we need people who have never even held a gun to take up arms and be effective against this now modern military force. And I use that term very loosely because odds are it's not going to be a modern military force, it's going to be a perceived modern military force. But the point is, we need a bunch of people to be effective enough with a firearm to be able to be a viable threat to this force. The big issue with handing out, say, ARs to a bunch of people who have never even held a gun before is the AR is a point of aim, point of impact firearm. At 100 yards, if that barrel is not aimed at a particular target and you pull that trigger, then the odds of you hitting that target are extraordinarily low, not unless you have a particularly inaccurate AR. My point is most people are not going to be able to actually hit their targets because they will have had no formal training. They're just regular civilians that, like I said, have never even held a gun before. A lot of people in the US have never even, they have no idea how a firearm even functions. However, if you were to take, say, a mass mob of untrained people and hand them a shotgun, then at the distances that you're most likely to engage a military force at, buckshot is a really good option. It's such a good option that the United States military took that concept of having multiple projectiles sent downrange to increase hit probability, and they ran a bunch of experiments with it before in an attempt to increase hit probability with their soldiers. But within like 300 yards, if you have just this mass group of people like mag dumping their buckshot at a particular foreign entity that has invaded, odds are a lot of those buckshot pellets are going to be smacking onto those targets versus giving everybody, say, point and shoot rifles, in which case you're going to have a lot of rounds that just aren't going to hit their targets. Whenever every shot you fire fires 9 shots in a particularly, like, unusual direction, with lack of better terminology here, the odds of at least one of those shots finding a target is extraordinarily high, especially as you increase the numbers of people that are using it, and we have a lot of people here in the United States. The United States is a really, really big country, and 350 million people is a lot of people. But you give the masses this double-aught buckshot round, these untrained people who would not be able to effectively use an intermediate cartridge to the full extent of what it is that it is designed for, and you give them shotguns with buckshot, and dude, that is a serious force to be reckoned with. That is such an an underappreciated force to be reckoned with. If you had 100 dudes, just 100 civilians defending their town against upcoming hordes of whatever sort of paratroopers that are coming down, or insert your choice of end of the world situation here, they should be able to handle quite a bit with their shotguns with buckshot. And it's a mind-bogglingly underappreciated round because we're all so hyper-focused on the stuff that we think is interesting, and we just don't think that shotguns with buckshot is interesting just because it's so good at what it does. It's easy mode. It is like the easiest way to be able to put down a target, and the easiest way to get a lot of people to be very effective at what they do. As a matter of fact, I think that it was the Philippines in World War II, ... where pipe shotguns were extraordinarily common because they were easy to make, but they were also extraordinarily effective. And it's a really, really cool concept that I think deserves a lot more recognition than it actually gets. If you have untrained civilians, which most people in the United States, they're untrained civilians that have never even held a gun. If you have untrained civilians going up against a professional military force, we're not talking about tactically trying to overtake an enemy. We're talking about guerrilla hit and run tactic warfare. Like, hey, there's the enemy right there. They're doing whatever it is that they're doing over there. We have 50 guys at this tree line with buckshot. Let's mag dump that buckshot in that direction. We'll probably smack a fair number of them, and then let's get the hell out of here. And I feel like that is mostly what the average civilian would do in some sort of situation like that. Now, from a more realistic standpoint, like I said, if you're choosing buckshot for just a defensive purpose, whether or not you're going to be using it against two-legged or even four-legged critters that might be coming at you, maybe you're off hiking or hunting or in the woods somewhere, getting away from, I got no idea, getting away from the wife. Who knows what your situation is? And you have to put something down because something has decided to come out of the woods to try and harm you. Odds are that buckshot's going to be able to handle it. Unless you're dealing with like a trained sniper from 500, 600, 700 yards away, in which case that is just a really bad situation that you found yourself in, then odds are buckshot will be able to handle it for you. So there we go. There's my little rant on why buckshot is extraordinarily underrated. We all talk about it as a good, viable option. It's a very cheap option. $250 will get you a shotgun. Another $50 will get you a whole bunch of buckshot that you can use with that shotgun. It takes very minimal training to learn how to use something like that. It is really, really good at what it does. It stops the threat immediately, basically no matter what it is that you're coming across. Thanks for watching, folks. Appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.